Good morning, Doxa Church. Would you stand and worship with us this morning? Sing, I was buried. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my turn till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my turn till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Yes, it has. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new. Jesus, when I met you, you called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. That's good news, church. Hey, let's sing together. I needed rescue because my sin was heavy. Let's sing. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy. The chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. You called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, sing it out. I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness
in this classroom of third graders. My students fill up their minds with new ideas, and they go off to far off places, the books that they read, and I sneak them a little snack and fill up their bellies so they can keep learning. And for a lot of years, I just did this on my own because a lot of the families here can't afford to provide snacks for their children here at school, and so I just did it and didn't really think much of it because these are my kids and I love them and I want their needs to be met. But this year, I have help, and it means a lot. I feel seen and appreciated for the work that I'm doing here, and I am so thankful. My heart is so full of love and gratitude. So thank you for that. And my students' little bellies, thank you too. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
We also have what we call parent nights, which we are intentionally inviting some key groups of students and families to those parent nights. So we know that it is super important to do what we can to reach out to the parents of our Black and African American community, to those in our Latina community, and then those also in our Hmong community. And so we have parent nights about 3 times a year. And so in those parent nights, sometimes we have a potluck that everybody brings a dish to pass, and we either learn some games together, or somebody does a presentation. We invited South Madison community members to come and speak about what's going on, and so Doxa volunteers have been really key in that, in providing childcare for when we want to meet with the parents and have a more intimate conversation with them without the distraction of children, and then also help in serving the meal as well. So they're just there to support on whatever we say. Yep, go do this. We need somebody for that. And Doxa is always there saying, yep, okay, sign me up. Tell me what to do.
This year, the gift cards allowed us to purchase very specific supplies for our classrooms. So normally kids or donations would come in and we'd get all different kinds of folders, but this year we were able to create a system where every student has the same color folder for the same subject. So it really helps our 5th graders organize their materials and follow directions and get things done quickly.
About a third of my students showed up without school supplies, so the first thing I have used the donation for is getting those things: notebooks, folders, binders, all the things you think of as school supplies, getting those for the students who need them, and quietly getting them into their lockers or desks so they feel ready to go and ready to learn and don't have to worry about any of those material things.
You don't know how much we appreciate being able to purchase things for our classroom without having to go through a whole bunch of hoops of figuring out where to get the funds from. I've already used a huge chunk of mine buying snacks for the beginning of the school year, getting books to replace ones that have fallen apart in the classroom library. I got a broom for my classroom, and I know we already have plans for how we want to spend the next chunk of money to help with like science experiments and getting supplies for the different activities that we do. So again, thank you so much. Your generosity is really appreciated.
Doxa members, I just want to say how grateful and how thankful we are for your partnership. It has been a tremendous blessing, and working with the team from Doxa, I am very grateful, and I know our teachers and staff are too, as we have strengthened this partnership over the years. It is definitely in a stage where I believe we've began a few years ago, and I feel like it's really strong, our partnership. You're showing up in so many different ways. And when I go and meet whoever's working the food pantry or whoever's coming in to talk with our staff in also individual meetings, I'm always impressed by how much you care and have love for Lincoln. So just very, very grateful.
Yeah, Doxa. My name's Jared. I get to be on staff here at Doxa Church, and what you guys just got to see right there was an incredible display of what intentionality and generosity from this church can do in this community. How cool is that, right? That we have these partner schools, partner programs that we get to come alongside and bless in this way, and we've been doing this for the last several years, and this video was just a token of their thanks to say, hey, Doxa Church, thank you And I even want to say thank you, too, for what you've done and how you guys continue to contribute to these schools around our neighborhoods. So I've got a couple announcements for us before Nate comes up and gives us a message. The first one is this. Our Doxa Christmas store, we just talked about this last week. It's coming up on December 14th. Here's a graphic right here. Okay, it's going to be a 4-hour time period from 8 a.m. until 12 p.m. And we're looking for volunteers to come in and serve that. But not only that, we're looking to fill this store with gifts. Last week, we talked about a wish list that's on our website, doxamadison.com. If you guys can go there, look through that list, purchase some gifts. If you want to get those gifts sent straight here to Doxa, you can do that. Or if you want to get them shipped to your own house, you can bring those here and drop those off any given Sunday, okay? We have a table right outside in the foyer, right by the rock wall. You can hit me up even during the week if you want to come through on a Tuesday, Wednesday. We will be here, okay? And we'd love to take those gifts off your hands. Thank you guys for contributing to that. The second thing is this, intro to Doxa. Okay, if you're new to the life of Doxa Church or you've been here for a while and you want to know more about what Doxa is about, what makes Doxa tick, this is a class for you. Our next one is coming up on November 24th, Sunday, right after third service upstairs. If you guys can stick around and come to that, you can get some questions answered. You can meet some staff. You can get to know, hey, what it is that Doxa believes. Why do we believe it? What kind of impact are we looking to make in this city? So mark that on your calendars, November 24th. Come right upstairs. Meet us at the third service. We'd love to see you there. And the last thing is this. So many of you know that my wife and I, my family, we came here to Madison not to stay here, but to actually go from here. And we've been training here at Doxa Church for the last 2.5 years to be planting a church in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And there's a graphic going to come up here on the screen. And I know many of you, I've talked to many of you already, right, about this effort we're trying to see in Milwaukee. But we're actually going to be having an information meeting on December 1st, right, around 2 o'clock to 3:30, an hour and a half of your time. If you want to know just what we want to see in the city of Milwaukee, if you want to know why we're planting this church, if you want to ask us some questions of like what we want to see in that city, maybe you know a little bit about Milwaukee and the hard soil that it is there and even how difficult it is to find churches there. Like we want to go in a hard place like that. And maybe you're asking, man, why? Why are you going? Why does Doxa want to plant a church in Milwaukee? You can come to this information meeting. We would be happy to give you some information, answer some of your questions, and maybe even see how you can be a part of what we're doing in that city. Okay, so mark that date on your calendar as well, December 1st. Come back here. This QR code, you can use that to sign up. Just go there, give us a little bit of information. We'd love to have you come here. We're going to have some snacks, feed you guys some food, have some time to have conversation, and then just hear some things about Ambassador Church going to Milwaukee. Okay, hope to see you there as well. All right, hey, one of Doxa's values is family. And so before Nate comes up, would you guys stand up, find someone you don't know, and introduce yourself?
Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water on my skin. Dead men walking slave to sin. I wanna know about being born again. I need you. Oh God, I need you.
All right. Hey, good morning, Doxa. Grab a seat for me. It's good to be with you. If we haven't got the chance to meet yet, my name is Nate. I get to be on staff here. We've got a lot of good stuff going on this morning. We are continuing this series in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. It's the longest single passage on giving and generosity in the Bible. And just to catch you up to speed, again, if you're new or you haven't been around for the last few months, we're doing this 5-week series because there's sort of like an occasion of what's going on in the life of our church, right? As Rob has said, like our building is broken, doesn't work, right? For what God is doing here, our building isn't working right now. That's kind of the occasion, and so we're raising money to get our building to work how we need to, but in that there's an opportunity. Not just for us to get our building kind of up to speed of what will work for us, but actually for us to grow as disciples. For this to not just be kind of a moment in the life of our church where we do some upgrades or whatever, but we grow as disciples of Jesus. And we see what he has for us to be changed from the inside out, for his glory and to live as generous people far beyond kind of the short series we're in. So we'll get back to Romans in the coming weeks, but a couple more things for you to know. This week we're doing a week of prayer. So the building will be open in the evenings. We want you to come and pray and be part of that. And then on Friday we're doing advanced commitment night. For anybody who's ready to say, yeah, I know, I've been praying, I know what I want to give to this forward campaign, come on Friday night, 6:30 here, and be ready to just worship Jesus and lay your offering at his feet. Okay, you don't have to give the money then, but it's just kind of your commitment there. If you want to know any more, go to the forward wall, go to the website, check out that stuff. We want you to be informed and up to speed of what's going on. Does that sound good? Someone say yep. And just as a personal note, guys, my wife and I got to welcome our third kiddo on October 22nd. Yeah, his name's Wellington. I don't have a picture for you. He's super cute, but unfortunately, he's been in the NICU. He's had some stomach issues, and so, yeah, keep praying for us. He had surgery on Friday, and we're hoping that he'll be back home in a week or two. Man, our connection group, our staff family has been so generous, and so, yeah, just such a cool example of Jesus' love to us. So really grateful for your prayers. Keep praying. Elaine is with him today, and yeah, hopefully we'll get to bring him home soon. So, all right, I want to start with a story. Something happened the other day. In the middle of kind of this weird season of my kid being in the NICU, all this stuff, I get a knock at my door at night. And that's not like unheard of in my life. About a year ago, I got a knock on my door late at night, and it was a guy, we'll call him Dan. And Dan was in a tough spot. He needed some help financially. He had a lot going on in his life, but that started kind of this year-long process of me and Elena trying to befriend him and trying to understand what's going on in his life, trying to help him out. Definitely not doing it like perfectly or even well sometimes, but I've been really challenged by some of my friends in Doxa who have like loved people long term and given sacrificially and brought community around to help people. And as I tried to get to know and love Dan and respect him, like trying to understand what was going on in his life, sometimes there'd be moments where we gave him financially when we could. Other times it was like diapers and wipes or a ride or gas or whatever. Just trying to figure out like, God, what are you inviting us into in his life and his story? And I don't know his heart. I don't know what all is going on in him and his life. But along the way, I told him, like, hey, I want to be your friend. Like, I want to care about you. I don't want to just, like, have these transactions. I want to actually care about you. But over time, it started to feel a little bit like, okay, Dan's going to come by when he needs something. But other than that, it's whatever, right? No, which totally fine. Again, he's going through a lot. I'm not going to pretend to understand everything he's going through. But this sort of came to a head the other week. I'd been sleeping at the hospital every night at the NICU, and just getting early morning updates from doctors and all that stuff. And I was home for a few hours to see our other two kids who need to see their dad sometimes. That'd be cool, right? And I get a knock on the door at night, and it's Dan. And something that's happened actually a few different times happened where he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Man, not good. My kid's in the hospital. We don't really know what's going on, you know." I said, "Oh man. Well, hey, okay, so this is what's going on. I need money for this. I need this going on, and I quit that job. I'm doing this and whatever, and I'm with this new girl and all this stuff." It's like, man. In that moment, I felt like an ATM, not a person, right? And again, I'm not going to assume what's going on in his heart because he genuinely has a lot going on. I'm not going to pretend that I'm in a position to judge him, but in my heart, I was like sad and frustrated and I felt so torn about giving because it's like, dude, we got stuff that we got to pay for. Like, what do we do here? And so I wasn't mean to him. I wasn't short with him, but I said, hey, man, we can't give anything right now. And I went back into the living room where Elena and our two kiddos, Tia, who's 4, Winston, who's 2, were, and I just started talking to her about it. Like, I'm sad. I'm kind of angry right now, and I don't know what to do because I don't want to be greedy, and I know in my heart I can use money to try to control, and I get that, but I also, like, his story isn't adding up right now, and I don't know what to do here. I was torn up. And my 2-year-old, Winston, if you've served in Doxa Kids, like, you know this dude is kind of a wild man. He comes over and he's like, "It's okay, Dad. You don't have to be sad. You can have a happy heart." Which I know that sounds like a pastor talking about his kid. Like, no, Winston speaks in full sentences. It's a little bit wild, right? Like, he was like, "Oh, Dad, you can have a happy heart." Now, if you've ever been in a situation where you've been corrected by a 2-year-old, oof, like, because he was right. Like, I want to have a happy heart about giving and generosity. Like, I want to, in those moments, be free and open-handed to love the person in front of me, even whatever's going on in my life. I want to coach my son to be a generous person, not a greedy person, because I know I struggle with that in my heart. And there are times where it feels like the things going on in my heart, or even the circumstances I'm looking at, that it gets so muddled and confusing, and I don't know how to be a generous person. I don't know what can drive generosity in those moments. Have you ever felt that? It's the person that's at the intersection asking for money. And maybe this like cynicism creeps up in your heart of like, yeah, right. They're just going to go buy this with that. Their car's just parked around the corner. Or it's that family member that you've given to before, but you know their backstory, you know their life, and you're not really sure if you should give again. Or maybe you've never like given regularly or generously, and so the idea of giving your money feels like scary and out of control, and maybe you've got some history with money where you're actually pretty nervous about this whole thing. So even these conversations around money have been making you really uncomfortable. Doxa, I think there are some times where what drives our giving and our generosity is really our emotions or our circumstances. We can be so driven by these things like what's going on in my heart or what am I seeing around me and how am I interpreting it. And those things can begin to drive our generosity. And here's what happens if we just let that run. We can become the kind of people that will only give if circumstances perfectly align. I'm only going to give when things make sense the way that I want them to make sense, when I want them to, and how I want them to. Maybe that's how you've lived. And frankly, that doesn't seem like the life that God is inviting us into, does it? That doesn't seem like the kind of people that God is trying to invite us to be. If you've been around for the last few weeks of this series, that doesn't seem like what God is trying to provoke in us. The God of the universe, I think he's inviting us to something so much more than being closed-fisted, emotionally tight, and waiting until things perfectly fit into our hands before we respond with generosity. But here's the question. Here's the question I've been asking myself, and here's the question I think our text is driving us to. What can drive generosity if it's more than just our emotions or just our circumstances? What can actually drive us to become generous people in a way that would reflect the generosity of God to us? That's where we're going today. That's the question we're going to try to answer. Now, here's the interesting thing about this passage. We're in 2 Corinthians 8, 16 through 24. If you've got a Bible, I'd love for you to open it there. And on the surface, it's a list of Paul's traveling companions, which as a preacher, it's like, wait, do we really have to preach verse by verse? But we're going to. But it's just this list of people that are going to travel with Paul. On the surface, it looks kind of innocuous, but as I've been studying it and praying through, I think underneath there is a reason why God has this in his word. There is a reason why the God of the universe included this in a letter that's made it to us 2,000 years later. God is going to teach us and show us something through this list about what could drive our generosity. So what we're going to do together is we're going to read through the passage and kind of make some observations and try to summarize how this passage could teach us about what drives our generosity, and then we're going to apply it to our lives. Pretty simple. You ready to go to work? Some say yep. All right, let's do it. 2 Corinthians 8, starting in verse 16. Read along with me. Paul writes, "But thanks be to God, who put into the heart of Titus the same earnest care I have for you. For he not only accepted our appeal, but being himself very earnest, is going to you of his own accord." So the first traveling companion that Paul's talking about, the first person coming to the Corinthians in this season of giving and generosity that Paul's inviting them into, this first person's Titus. And Paul drops his name because they would have known Titus. Titus was a church planter that traveled with Paul. Eventually he ends up in Crete leading a church. We've actually got a letter written to him, but Titus is someone who would have been with the Corinthians, would have loved them, shepherded them, ministered to them. Paul is saying God has actually put it into Titus's heart to come and be with you because he cares about you. And look at the word that Paul repeats about Titus here. In verse 16, he says, God put the same earnest care I have for you. And in verse 17, he's very earnest, going to you of his own accord. Earnest is more than just like a weird dude in funny movies from the 90s, right? Like the word earnest means to be like sincere and driven by conviction towards action. There's something about Titus's heart that is driven towards action for these people. This earnest care for them. He loves them. He's going on this journey with Paul. It would have been dangerous. It would have been hard. It would have been long. He's going to help with this moment of generosity because he was driven by something more than circumstances, but by a deep conviction that this is for their good and for God's glory. And why is Paul saying this? Why is Paul highlighting this about Titus? Partially, he's trying to remind them that Titus isn't some slick salesman. Titus isn't just some guy that's coming only for this moment of generosity, but he has already loved and cared about and shepherded and invested in these people. He's coming because he genuinely loves them and cares about them. And if you saw at the beginning of verse 16, Paul says, thanks be to God. Like, glory and worship to God is already happening because Titus wants to come. This moment, this season of generosity in the church in Corinth, giving to poor churches in Jerusalem, Paul is saying that's turning into thanks and praise to God already. So Titus is the first of these traveling companions, and again, Paul is highlighting something about his character, his earnestness for them, his care for them. Keep reading, let's look at more of his traveling companions. Verse 18, with him, with Titus, we are sending the brother who is famous among all the churches for his preaching of the gospel. Dude doesn't get a name, he's just got a reputation, right? Like, that dude's famous, y'all know him already. Now, we don't actually know who this brother is. It might be Apollos, but the church in Corinth already knew who Apollos was, so you'd think Paul would use their name. Ultimately, who this person is doesn't matter that much. We know that they're coming with Paul and with Titus, and we're going to learn a little bit more about them than just they're a really good speaker. Keep going in verse 19. We already know he's famous for his preaching the gospel. Verse 19, not only that, he has been appointed by the churches to travel with us as we carry out this act of grace that is being ministered by us for the glory of the Lord himself and to show our goodwill. So part of how Paul is introducing this person in the church in Corinth is he's been appointed. The churches that know him, that know his life, that know his character, not just his famous speaking, but actually know him personally, are saying, hey, you are the person that we want to go with these guys to help with this giving. They've tested his character and found that he's actually honest and trustworthy. He's not going to give up when things get hard. He's not going to mismanage the money. He is somebody that's going to represent these churches in this act of giving and generosity. His character's been tested again, and he's been appointed by the churches to go. And why is that? Why do these people need to come with Paul? Like, what is going on here? Again, look at the end of verse 19. Paul's going to point it out. He says, for the glory of the Lord himself and to show our goodwill. God is being glorified in this season of generosity for the Corinthian churches. They were raising money for poor churches in Jerusalem to go and to bless them and to help them. God is being glorified when they look at his grace and his generosity towards them and turn that towards generosity with other churches, with other people here. First off, God is being glorified. And so this being done well matters. This happening, this going forward and brothers helping this happen, this actually leads to more glory for God. But secondly, Paul says to show our goodwill. If you've read Paul's letters to the Corinthians, you can feel a little like there's some conflict, some contention there. He's correcting them and challenging them because he loves them. And so he's saying, hey, this is to show our goodwill. I'm not trying to force you or manipulate you, but I also want to be above reproach with the churches in Jerusalem, right? I want receipts. I want people to know me and know what I'm up to and know what's going on here. The churches in Jerusalem have a representative so that they know what's happening, and the church in Corinth have people there so they know what's going on. Paul's saying, I want to show my goodwill to all of you. I'm not trying to do this secretly. I don't want this to be hidden. I actually want to do this with wisdom and do it above reproach, above board, so that everyone can see what's happening. It's for God's glory. It's not just for me. He's going to double down on this and talk about his motives in 20 and 21. Look at that. Verse 20 says, we take this course, like the work of gathering these people, appointing those people, traveling with them, all of this. We take this course so that no one should blame us about this generous gift that's being administered by us. For we aim at what is honorable, not only in the Lord's sight, but also in the sight of men. His reasoning kind of mirrors why this other brother is coming with them. He doesn't want to be blamed because of this generous gift. There's wisdom and there's a thought process ahead of time so that he's above board, above reproach. And there's two reasons that I think the first one might intuitively make sense. He wants to do what's honorable in the Lord's sight. Paul was a man that is aware that God's eyes are on his people. God is watching and testing and assessing our character. God really cares deeply who we are, not only in public, but in private too. He wants to do what's honorable in the Lord's sight, but the second one might surprise you a little bit. I want to do what's honorable in the Lord's sight, but also in the sight of man. Now, he wasn't being driven by just people-pleasing, right? He wasn't being driven just to make people think good things about him, but he actually wants to do what's honorable, what's above reproach in the sight of people. Why is that? Like, why should giving and generosity be done in this way that's honorable, yes, in God's sight, but also actually in other people's sight? Paul knows that the reputation of the gospel he's been speaking will be affected by the way that he handles money. He knows that the way he goes about this will actually affect the reputation of the gospel Again, as he's been preaching and planting churches and telling people about Jesus, if he mismanages this money, if he does poorly in this moment, it will say something about the words that he's been speaking to people's lives. Right? Maybe you've actually seen this in your life or the life of someone you care about. In fact, maybe you're not a Christian this morning because of this very thing. You've seen people maybe on TV talking about Jesus and at the same time saying, hey, if you just send me money, God will give you more money. Man, if you just send me money, then I'll send you a special prayer or special oil or special whatever. If you just give me more money, then God will bless you. And in the background, in their life, they've got suits and cars and planes and whatever, and those aren't bad things, but it started to put a bad taste in your mouth when they kept saying, just keep giving me money, just keep giving me money, and using Jesus' name. It doesn't even have to be someone public or someone famous or someone on TV. Maybe you've actually felt the pain of being in a local church and someone mismanaging money that was given graciously and generously. Maybe you've actually experienced that, and that's something that's turned you off from Jesus. Paul is saying the reputation of the gospel is on the line with how we handle money. It says something about who God is, the way that we deal with generosity and money and finances. And so wisdom in this, being above board, above reproach, really matters. Yes, for handling the money rightly, but more than that, for Jesus' reputation, for who he is. And friends, partially why this is so disturbing, when somebody in a position of authority in the church uses money poorly, partially why it's so frustrating is because it's so anti-Jesus. It is not what Jesus is like at all. Jesus is the King of heaven that left the riches of heaven to be born into poverty so that he could give us everything. So that he could live a perfect life and die to pay our debt. So that he could actually, in his love and his grace, he could give to us, not take from us. Friend, listen to me. You don't have to give a single cent to God for him to love you. But now if you come to Jesus, you got to give him your life, okay? But he is worth it. You don't have to give God money for him to answer your prayers or to hear you. It's not about that, but he is a good father loving you and wooing your heart. I don't know if this is for someone here this morning, but if you're not a Christian because you're skeptical about this whole money thing, can I just tell you again, God doesn't need your money, but he deserves your heart and your life. If he gets your heart, it will affect your money, let's be clear. But at the end of the day, you don't need to try to pay him off or bribe him for him to love you. He already loves you. And he proved it by sending Jesus to die for you and to raise in victory. Again, someone in a position of religious authority, why it gets so weird and so twisted when they handle money poorly is because it's so unlike Jesus, who was so generous and so kind and so self-giving. Paul wants to have the reputation of the gospel held up by the way he lives his life and the way he goes about this. So, he's not only going to bring Titus and this famous preacher, he's got more people coming with him to be part of this. Verse 22. With them, with these two brothers, we are sending our brother whom we have often tested and found earnest in many matters, but who's now even more earnest than ever because of his great confidence in you. Again, we don't get this person's name, but we know something important about them. We know they've been tested. Their character has been tested multiple times in life, in different situations, so that they can handle the weight and the responsibility of being part of this money going forward. And that same word, the description of Titus, pops up again. They're earnest. They're driven by deep conviction about who God is and what he's inviting them into. The word earnest has shown up now 4 times in this short passage. I don't know if you remember other places in the Bible. I don't know many places where that word earnest shows up. So if Paul's repeating it over and over and over again, there's something important. There's significance there that we need to see. They're driven by this deep conviction, this deep care, and it's turning into action in their lives. He's been tested. He's earnest. And he has great confidence in them. Paul wraps up this section. Look at verse 23, 24. He comes back to Titus. He says, as for Titus, he is my partner and my fellow worker for your benefit. Not for our benefit. Again, he's not a slick salesman. He actually loves you and cares about you. Remember that, Corinthians. For your benefit. As for our brothers, these coming with us, they are messengers of the churches. He's reminding them they've been tested, appointed, approved. The glory of Christ. So give proof before the churches of your love and of our boasting about you to these men. I kind of like how Paul does that. He wraps it up with put your money where your mouth is, right? Let's go. Here we go. Now again, if you first read that and it's okay, great, Titus is coming, a couple of random dudes, and Titus, cool. This might not have made your top quiet times favorite passage list, right? That's okay. But God has it in his word for a reason. And Paul, as he's writing under the inspiration of the Spirit, there's a reason why this is included in this letter. There's something for us that God actually wants to do to provoke our thinking about generosity, even as we look at the descriptions of these people. God wants to move us towards generosity that's not just driven by our circumstances or our emotions, but something deeper. Look back at verse 21. I think Paul is trying to show us here. He says, we aim at what is honorable in the Lord's sight and the sight of men. He makes this connection between his vertical relationship with God and the horizontal relationships around him. Even as he talks about the character and the testing and the appointment of these different men traveling with him, he's talking about the ways that God has shaped them and formed them and the way that's moved out in their lives for people around to see. There's a vertical dimension to this giving that is driving a horizontal action. Even again, that word earnest that he uses 4 times in this passage, it's this sincerity driven by deep conviction, but that conviction comes first, that drives living. Partially why this passage has been challenging to me as I prepped and as I prayed the last few weeks is because I know in those moments, whether it's a knock at the door or getting ready for advanced commitment night, I know in those moments, my emotion is not the thing that should rule the day and should win when it comes to giving. And even at the end of the day, my circumstances are going to come and go, they're going to change. That can't ultimately be the driver of my giving. Because as we've seen in this series, and maybe as you've read in Scripture, you know that the money and the possessions in your life, they're not ultimately yours, are they? Whose money is it in your life? Somebody tell me. Okay, one person knew that wasn't rhetorical. That's fine. At the end of the day, we know it's God's. It's a stewardship from him. Everything we've been given is a stewardship from him. There's a different person with their foot on the gas pedal than me if it's really God's. There's a different person who gets to be in the driver's seat to say in those moments where I'm in tension and in conflict about what to do. It's a different conversation than what do I feel or what do I want or what do I see if it's ultimately God's. I want to kind of put this big idea up that I think will explain a little bit where we're going in this passage. You put it up on the screen for me? Our vertical relationship drives our horizontal generosity. Our vertical relationship drives our horizontal generosity. And when I say drives, I think that's very important. One has to come before the other. And if your relationship with God is beginning to drive the horizontal implications and effects in your life, that means at the end of the day, my emotions or your emotions don't drive. That means my circumstances or your circumstances don't drive. They're real and significant, they affect things, but ultimately they're not in the driver's seat. But the one who has loved us and cared for us, the one who has changed us and transformed us, the one who has shown us his incredible grace, he is the one that begins to drive how we set our aim and how we live our lives and the character he shapes that moves into generosity for us. And I think Paul is trying to highlight that as he's talking about the men that are coming to care for the Corinthians and love their home churches and go on a very difficult and dangerous journey with great responsibility on their shoulders for the glory of God. I want to get very practical with this. I have 3 practical steps that I think come out of this passage and will affect the way that you handle the knock on the door if it comes tonight. Or the way that you handle praying for and thinking about giving, coming to advanced commitment night or giving in a few weeks. Here's the first one. Get your aim right. Get your aim right. Verse 21, again, Paul says, we aim at what is honorable not only in the Lord's sight, but in the sight of man. Aim for what is honorable in God's sight, not just what feels good or convenient or comfortable. Set your aim on pleasing and honoring the one who has already loved you and given to you. And friend, listen to me. If you're not a Christian today, the first thing you need to do is not just give money, but give your life to Jesus. Look at Jesus for who he is. He is the one that came to save you. There is a gap between you and God that you cannot fill with well wishes or trying hard or giving money. You can't bridge that gap. It's a gap between holiness, perfection, and anything else. But Jesus came to fill that gap for you. To pay the debt you owe of righteousness and right living before God. He came to pay that for you. And on the cross, he sacrificed himself that you could be covered with his righteousness. And he rose to life, proving he could do it. Proving he could save you. Proving he could give you a seat at the Father's table forever. To get your aim right, if you don't know Jesus, that's the first thing you need to do. You need to trust him. Look on him with faith. You can do that right now and say, okay, Jesus, I need you. I'm yours. Let him change everything about you. And Christian, when you think about your money, when you think about your finances, the first thing you need to do is remember it's not yours. It really isn't yours. Everything in your life is a gift from the one who's loved you. So get your aim right. How do you please him with it? How does he want to order your priorities and your finances? Get your aim right, fixed on him. But in verse 21, Paul says we aim for what's honorable in the Lord's sight and the sight of man. I've heard people use that excuse like, well, God knows what I give, so you don't need to know. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, right? Taking that out of context, right? Actually, our relationships with each other really matter. Our relationships with people, when we think about generosity, really matter. Not because we're trying to prove something or please people, but because we are prone to self-deception. Maybe just me. You might be in that boat too, though. We are prone to self-deception. If it's just up to me to keep a close circle around my budget and my finances and not let anyone in, I can be self-deceived. I can think I'm doing fine, but be giving into fear or control or greed or laziness. But God has put us into a church family where we can actually begin to help each other think about what's honorable in the sight of God, where we can start to open up our lives and our budgets too and start talking about money in a way that's not weird or manipulative, but actually honoring to Jesus. Because friends, let me remind you, Jesus talked about money a lot. He really did. He wasn't scared of these conversations, but he also wasn't trying to manipulate. And if you are loved by Jesus and you're in a community of people who love Jesus and love you, you can begin to have these conversations. Again, not because you're trying to prove something, not because you're trying to meet a certain number or someone's opinion or whatever, but because you're trying to figure out, how do I honor Jesus and adorn the gospel with the generosity of my life? If that's like crazy uncomfortable for you, totally fine. Pray about it. Invite Jesus to change your heart, and also pray for gospel friends to help you in that. Get your aim right. We want to please him and let him drive our generosity. And we want to adorn the gospel by the way that we live in generosity. That's the first step you can take. Get your aim right. Second step, I think it flows from this. Pursue character. Pursue character. Character is that primary description that Paul keeps bringing up of these people, this earnestness that is driven by the sincerity of their belief. Pursue character in your life. Become the kind of person that reflects the character of Jesus to the world around. Character is a really important thing in the New Testament. It's the overflow and the example of what Jesus has done for us. Character is not this like really cool, exciting thing to talk about, because so often it's hidden, it's private, it's small steps. But if you think about the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, so many of those that the Spirit wants to bear out in us look like character. Patience, self-control, joy regardless of circumstances. It looks like character. If you think about 2 Peter 1, Peter gives this list of character qualities to add to your faith so that you'll be fruitful and you'll be well prepared for eternity. Character really matters in the Christian life. Even the qualifications for an elder that Paul gives to Timothy and to Titus, so much of those, almost all of them, are character-based, that he wants people in the church to aspire to and grow towards. Pursue character. Let me just give you a test. Would somebody put you in the position that the men in this passage are being put in? Would somebody entrust you with a difficult task, to take a load and a responsibility above reproach, a great financial thing that's not actually for you, but to be used for other people? Would somebody put that weight on your shoulders? Would somebody put you in this situation? Or would the weight of that moment reveal you're not earnest? You're actually driven by the emotions of the moment. You're not going to push through when things get difficult, or is there some lack of full truthfulness in your life? That if a large financial gift was put in your hands, that compromise might come. Pursue character because it glorifies Jesus and it teaches us how to go about using the resources he's given us well. And let me just be frank, guys, you will probably not be put in a position to do this. Nobody's asking you to go on a journey a long ways to go take money for somebody else. But the God of the universe has put you in this position. The stewardship of your life, the finances flowing through your hands, God has actually already put you in this position. So how is your character around your money and your finances? Are you reflecting Jesus in generosity and in selflessness, in honesty and authenticity, or is something else coming out? Pursue character, and that means pursuing Jesus ultimately, asking him to change you and praying and repenting when you fall short of the standard he set and what he is like. Pursue character. Ask him to change you to be the person he's calling you to be, to handle the responsibility that he has already given you in love. The final practical application is seek and practice wisdom. Seek and practice wisdom. It's all over this passage. Paul telling them ahead of time people are coming, Paul planning, Paul giving an account, he wants the receipts, all of that stuff. And sometimes we can pit like the Holy Spirit against planning. That is not at all what the Bible does, right? Paul is like spirit-filled, spirit-led, worshiping and glorifying God, and he's like an accountant. He's very practical. He's like, let's go. I got to get my people lined up. I got to get my travel. I got all this together. Wisdom and the Spirit work hand in hand because wisdom is from God. The Spirit wants us to be wise in the way we think about our giving and think about how we do these things well. So seek wisdom. James 1 says, man, if you need wisdom, pray and ask God. Don't doubt that he wants to give it to you. He actually wants to give you wisdom to think about these things. Maybe you need to be asking God for wisdom. How do I deal with my finances? How do I deal with the stewardship that God's given me in my life? Seek wisdom. Ask God for it, and I think he would want to bless you with wisdom in that situation. God, how do you want me to steward what you give in my life? And as you seek wisdom, practice wisdom. Wisdom is skillful living. It's these small moments, these choices of trying to live in a way that is glorifying to God, that is thoughtful, that is knowledgeable in life. Start with very small practical things. And when it comes to money or stewardship in your life, maybe that looks like the very basic, like boring things like doing a budget, right? And if you've never had conversations like this, maybe the first step is get around some people and go, hey, do you know how to budget? Like, where do you buy groceries? How do we do this? Like, start having those conversations inside of the church family so we can start practicing wisdom together. And let that small practice of wisdom day by day drive you towards greater wisdom in those difficult moments of life. Because it takes wisdom to know when there's the knock on your door, like, okay, God, what are you inviting me to do? Do I give this time and not that time? How does this work? It takes wisdom to know, God, can I actually give a gift like this? Can I give that generously? Or am I just being emotionally driven right now? How do I be wise in that? But let me be very clear. Wisdom is not the same as cynicism, okay? Wisdom is not skepticism constantly about other people's motives and ideas. Don't use wisdom as a smokescreen to hide your fear or your greed or your control. It is not the same thing because God might ask you to do some things with your money and finance that don't feel good and maybe scare you a little bit, but is actually wise and walking in step with him. Let your vertical relationship drive your horizontal generosity. And the steps you can begin taking even today is getting your aim right and pursuing character and seeking and practicing wisdom. And these very practical steps, church, if we began to practice these, if we began to be driven by a relationship with God towards generosity, what do you think would happen? What do you think would happen in the schools in our city or the relationships you have in your life? What would happen in your own joy and your love for Jesus in your life? And like we've been doing in the series, we just want to give you a picture, an example of what this could look like. I want you to turn your eyes to the screen and check out Mike and Karen's story. Go ahead.
You know, we talk a lot about how our most important relationship is with the Lord, and our most important earthly relationship is with each other. And when we keep God's glory at the center of that, it doesn't always work out. I mean, sometimes we need to get course corrected. But, you know, through prayer and petition and through each other, when we allow God's glory to be at the center of our relationship, it's transformative and it changes all of the different ways I think that we worship individually and worship as a couple.
When you take that leap of faith, when you do something that you think is really hard, because it's something that you know God is calling you to do. There is something that is so fun, actually, about that, because it's an unknown. And in our marriage, I think the unity that the Spirit gave us in that process, like only God could give us that kind of unity. And also just the ability to have that kind of joy, to experience that kind of joy. We just laugh about it now, even, you know, only God. And what it allows us to do now, and that muscle that got exercised by taking that leap, has allowed us to take other leaps of faith in ways that we wouldn't have expected.
Honoring God is I think a goal and an objective for the Christian that certainly convicted us, a little over 20 years ago. Giving our age away a little bit, as 34 and 33-year-olds, we became tithers and offering people for the first time. And we haven't looked back. To say that was an easy decision would be, not completely truthful. Because it's one thing to say that you want to honor God with your generosity because he was first generous with us through his son. And everything that spills out and the way that it spills out into your life. But then to live it out is another thing. Karn and I, upon reflecting a little bit, that first big gift, for us at least, that we made was the total of our mortgage and our 2 car payments and our annual cable or our monthly cable bill.
Yeah.
And we didn't know how it was going to work.
I had just quit my job.
You just quit your job?
I was pregnant with our third. And
Yeah.
we had just bought a house.
And we
It
just
was
bought a house.
at the top of our
Yeah.
price point. Yeah,
And so,
makes sense.
but we figured it out.
You can clap for that. Go for it. Yeah. I kind of love the moment where it's kind of like, yeah, we didn't know how it's going to work out. Video end. But honestly, those moments of like, okay, God is driving us towards something that we wouldn't have picked for ourselves. And the joy and the unity, the freedom to pursue him wherever he's going. Doxa, those knocks at the door might still happen. That tension in your heart might happen where your emotion or your circumstances don't line up with God, what God's inviting you into. But man, as he drives us towards generosity, I think we're going to find more freedom and more joy and more opportunity for the gospel to shine brightly in our city, for people to hear the name of Jesus and to see how he's changed our lives because he's been so generous to us. Let's pray and invite him to make us this kind of people with our aim set on him. Jesus, we trust you. We trust you because you gave yourself for us and you have loved us so generously and abundantly. Would you make our relationship with you drive generosity out in our lives, that the world would be blessed, that people would come to know you, and that our city would be a better place because you're teaching us to be a generous people. We trust you, Jesus, because you are trustworthy. We praise your name. Amen. Doxa, we love to respond to the generosity of Jesus by remembering what he's done for us. He gave us a reminder on the night he was betrayed in communion. On the night he was betrayed, he took bread and broke it, said, "This is my body broken for you." His body broken because of our sin. He took the cup and said, "This is my blood shed for the new covenant, for the forgiveness of many." A reminder that when you stand before God, you don't stand before God trying to show him the best of what you've done, but you are covered in the righteousness of Jesus. If you're a Christian today, would you just take communion over the next couple songs and worship with us as a reminder of your relationship with him? We have 4 stations around the room. And if you're not a Christian this morning, would you just observe? It doesn't make sense for you to take communion because your aim is not set on honoring God yet. You don't have a relationship with him yet. But today you could. What is holding you back from trusting Jesus as your Lord and Savior? It's so simple. You just acknowledge that there is a God and you are not him. And there's sin in your life that keeps you from God. There's a gap between you that you can't fill with well wishes or good actions or giving. You can't fill that gap, but Jesus came to bring you to God, to bring forgiveness to you through his sacrifice. And today you just say, okay, Jesus, I'm yours. You are Lord, you are Savior. I will follow you for the rest of my life and accept the gift that he won through his death. And then come take communion. Come celebrate with us and be driven with us towards the things that he's inviting us into. So again, over the next couple songs, we'd love for you to stand up and worship with us and take communion.
I'm removing all of the things that would move me further from you. I think you could not be enough.
Doxa, I'm so grateful I get to worship with you. I'm grateful we get to sing to the one that has loved us so much, and for our hearts to be reoriented towards him, so that our lives wouldn't be driven just by emotion or by circumstance, but driven by our relationship with him. Maybe there's one of the practical steps that God's inviting you to take this morning. If you need prayer, there'll be people up front that would love to pray with you and help you process those things a little bit. Also, this week, we've got the week of prayer from 6 to 8. On Monday through Thursday, the building will be open for you to come and pray and pursue him and let him continue to rewire and reorient your heart towards him and what he's inviting you into. And then on Friday night, for anyone who's ready, we're going to, in worship, make our commitments for this forward campaign to God. 6:30 here, we would love for you to come if you are ready to write down a number and say, okay, God, I think this is what you're inviting me to do. But with that, Doxa, we love you. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you at prayer night and then back here next Sunday.
Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I can face my giants with confidence. You took a shepherd boy and made him a king, so I'm gonna trust you and give you everything. I'll be a conqueror, 'cause you fight for me. I'll be a champion, claiming your victory. So give me faith like Daniel in the lion's den. Give me hope like Moses in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I can face my giants with confidence. I'm gonna sing and shout and shake the wall, won't stop until I see them fall. Gonna stand up, step back when you call. And Jesus, Jesus, I'm gonna sing and shout and shake the wall, won't stop until I see them fall. Gonna stand up, step back when you call. And Jesus, give me faith like Daniel in the lion's den. Give me hope like Moses in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I can face my giants with confidence. Yeah! Give me faith like Daniel in the lion's den. Give me hope like Moses in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David, Lord, be my defense, so I can face my giants with confidence. I'll face my giants with confidence. Right now I'm staring down a giant. Right now I can't see past my pain. Right now my songs have turned to silence, and you've never seemed so far away. But I still believe, I still believe. There's no heart you can't rescue, no war you can't win, no story so over it can't start again, no pain you won't use, no war you won't break through. It might be too much for me, but there is no impossible with you. place to hide this weary soul, this bag of bones. I tried with all my might, but I just can't win the fight. I'm slowly drifting, a vagabond. And just when I ran out of road, I met a man I didn't know, and he told me that I was not alone. He picked me up and turned me around and placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart and changed my name. Forever free, I am not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God. I cannot deny what I've seen. Got no choice but to believe. My doubts are burning, like ashes in the wind. So long to my old friends, burden and bitterness. You can just keep it moving, but you ain't welcome here. From now till I walk the streets of gold, I'll sing of how you saved my soul. This wayward son has found his way back. He picked me up, he turned me around, he placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because he healed my heart and changed my name. Forever free, I am not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God. Oh, hell lost another one. I am free. Oh, I am free. Oh, I am free. Hell lost another one.